welcome everybody to the Spanish Fork Planning Commission meeting tonight. I've asked Commissioner Mendenhall if he would lead us in the pledge.
Please say the pledge with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looking at the agenda, it looks like our first item is the approval of the minutes from our September 1st meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look over those? And if so, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes from September 1st.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next agenda item is the J6 annexation.
We'll give Mike a second to pull up a presentation slide, but this will suffice. The J6 annexation, if you look at the image on the right-hand side, you can barely make out the end of the runway, just to kind of give you opportunity to orient yourself. Just on the edge of city limits in the northwest quadrant. Approximately 90 acres, just over 90 acres, and it's currently in our annexation policy boundary as well as inside of our growth boundary. And what's important, so it's the crosshatch on the left, and this is an earlier version. I believe it takes in the Thomas property as well. Yes. Sorry. What's important is Sunrock is currently doing a lot of work in the area, and so most, if not all, of the utilities and infrastructure will be right on the doorstep of this proposed annexation plat. The City Council did look at it for approve it for further study previously this year. DRC did have the opportunity to review this prior to your consideration and does recommend, as written in the staff report, that with the annexation, the I-1 zone district be applied to the property. With your staff report, there was a feasibility study that was provided as well that just kind of highlighted where and how the property can be serviced and utilized. Applicant is here tonight. If there's any questions for staff, I'd be happy to try and address those. Otherwise, we can invite the applicant up if he's got information to share with you.
Maybe, Mike, just real quick, if you could maybe show on the maps where existing utilities are at as of now.
Yeah.
Do we pass out pointers?
We've got them.
So if you look just, yep, you can see the Sunrock site. This is a really recent air photo down right there. Yep.
There you go. So then we're talking, this spot over for J6.
It's not how you spell cougar. It's spelled C-O-U-G-A-R.
Yeah, I used to have a picture of the Aggies here. Now I changed it to the Texas Aggies.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yep, so
I made this for something else, but
yeah, it's right there. So it looks like everything's pretty close.
Yeah, so we're currently bonded to have all the utilities, bonded meaning the developers bonded with us to do all the improvements in the blue. And then this would just be an extension of what they'll have in place in the next 4 to 6 months.
Okay. Then, does the applicant have anything you would like to add? I guess question I would have for you is, do you have anything proposed at this point for the property?
Yeah, I'm Jared Morgan with GWC Capital. We did receive approval today from the county commissioners to take the annexation area out of agricultural protection, which is obviously a requirement of the cities and ours as we move to develop it. We do have a large-scale industrial development planned on the 92 acres. Okay. And we're seeing this as phase 2 of potentially 4 phases of our industrial park in the area.
Okay, great.
So,
Any other questions for staff or for the applicant?
I welcome it.
Just concerning the boundaries, this is the existing city boundary, right?
Yeah, if you go to the, you have the slides.
I am having trouble looking at it.
That southern line is the existing boundary.
Yeah. It's a little bit hard to see.
Or you can use the public map.
Yeah.
Question, John, sorry.
So, yeah, so this annexation comes along here and then comes back, I call this 400 North or, the Springville Highway, but is this the property and does it go over, all the way over to the highway here?
Yes.
Okay.
So is there, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
So there's a home right here. You have that home under contract as well?
yeah, we're the owners of the home already.
Okay. Very good.
Does the city have any concerns as far as the airport runway and future expansion? We feel like we've got enough room with airport property as is.
That's a great question, and historically, I think that would have been a concern. It's something still that needs to be addressed. Our airport manager is heading up a project now to put together an updated version of our master plan for the airport. The current version absolutely contemplates additional expansions in the airport that carries that runway further towards the state highway. I don't understand all the ins and outs of the different types of aircraft traffic that we anticipate being able to host at the airport in the future, what that means in terms of length of runway and how the runway is constructed in terms of how heavy of aircraft it can support and that type of a thing. But our initial review that we're getting from our airport manager is that most likely
All right.
they're going to find that no additional expansions of the runway are anticipated going forward, that the existing length of the runway would remain the same. That wouldn't mean that the runway couldn't be reconstructed to be able to handle heavier aircraft than what we can now, that can still utilize a runway of the length that we have here. But that's something that we still need to work through. I think well in advance of when somebody could build something within, if you can just picture how the runway would continue through the lands that are included in this annexation, I think we'll have some more definitive answers from our airport folks. And we've talked with the applicant about that and even some potential users of property here and that type of thing. And I think everybody's on the same page.
So that, if it were to become an issue, would be addressed as a proposal for that property comes before the city.
The next step.
So annexation, totally separate from any of that.
Regardless of how that plays out, we feel like having the property annexed and having it zoned for industrial development is the best thing for the city now.
Okay.
I guess the city and the airport board work closely with the Provo Airport as well, because obviously the airspace between the two is very close. If you look at how those two runways line up, they're pretty close in proximity. And of course, Provo already has a longer runway and the ability to land larger planes and stuff, a longer runway. So I don't know how they would feel about expanding a runway that would necessitate having some of the planes from this runway go into their airspace, either landing or taking off.
I haven't understood that that's really any concern, really, that there's adequate room for both airports to operate independently of each other.
Good.
I do know that there's been considerable conversation and thought as Provo's airport really goes from being what historically Spanish Forks Airport has been and what we think ours will continue to be, which is a general aviation airport, to where now Provo is getting into the passenger service business, and they're probably going to do that pretty robustly with the new terminal and things like that that'll be operational here in the really near future. So, and again, please don't take what I'm saying as coming from an expert. I just know what I hear as I sit through meetings. But kind of the evolution, I think we believe, of our airport really has to do with just general aviation. That's not passenger service and that type of thing. It might be flight schools and that type of service, but otherwise it's recreational aviation, it's business aviation, it's different things like that.
Smaller
I think
planes.
that's factoring as well into the idea that probably won't be a lot of traffic in and out of our airport. You know, it's bigger than maybe like a 737 or something like that ever. And with that, our runway length is sufficient, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, this is not a public hearing for annexation, right? So that being the case, if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to recommend the J6 annexation be recommended for approval to an I-1 zone based on the staff's findings and conditions.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next agenda item. This will be a public hearing. This is a conditional use permit for Highway 6 cell tower modification.
Thank you. The existing tower you can see on the left. The location of the tower you can see in the central image highlighted in yellow. And then to the right, you can see kind of an overall view of the area. Existing tower, the request that we received from the applicant is they're mainly swapping out equipment for equipment. They would be adding a few additional antennas on the existing tower. If we jump to the next slide, this kind of scan, not perfectly, but on the left you see the existing tower. On the right, the area that's in black, that's multiple antennas, not one large antenna like that. Staff feels it's pretty straightforward, and no additional conditions at this time.
Okay.
This is on Spanish Fork City property next to that filter building. Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and move into public hearing. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak to the conditional use permit for the cell tower? Seeing none, we'll move out of public hearing. And if there's no additional comments, then I would entertain a motion.
I would move that we recommend that the proposed cell tower modification conditional use permit be recommended to the city council with the following.
Oh, sorry.
CUP were the final, right?
Land Use Authority is the planning commission for the conditional
Oh,
use
so we're
permit.
just
Yeah.
recommending?
Final.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So my recommendation is that we approve the cell tower modification with the findings and conditions of the staff.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Mendenhall, a second by Commissioner Carden. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next agenda item, we've got preliminary plats. This first one is for the North Point Properties Plat A.
Thank you. So we're back to the north part of town. This is North Main at approximately 3450 north. To the top of the property adjacent to the north property line, that is the Spanish Fork Springville city boundary. You've got Young Living just to the southeast of this image here. Pretty straightforward proposal. They're taking an existing subdivided parcel. It's an existing lot and a subdivision, and they're going to further subdivide it into 3 industrial lots. Staff has no real concerns. We haven't had any proposals as far as users for the lots, but this is the first step in further subdividing that property. Any questions for staff?
It's currently zoned I-1, I-2,
Yes.
I-1.
I-1.
These are the lots that have the red iron stacked on them right now.
No, that would be in Springville City. This is further south.
Further
If we
south.
jump to the air photo, or the map, excuse me.
Okay, yep. A little more to the right. No?
A little bit more to the north
This
where
is,
that iron
yeah, this is the iron stack to the north.
Still looking for the north outlet, right there to
Okay.
the right, Mike.
Yeah, you can see all the stacks. Yep, so this is to the south within the city limits.
The city boundary is the northern boundary of this property here.
Yep.
So we're looking at 3, is what they said, 3 lots, okay? Is the applicant here tonight? Doesn't look like it. All right. Any additional questions for staff with the applicant not being here? Okay.
Pretty standard.
Sorry to cut you off on your last motion. I apologize. Just to clarify, this is a standard subdivision, and so land use authority is you, the planning commission, and so
As
your
well?
motion would be
Final?
final.
Okay.
No public hearing?
Thank you, Brandon.
No public hearing required, and they would come back through the DRC for the final plat.
Is that the same for the next one as well, Swift Creek?
Different for the next one.
Okay. Okay, so that being said, I would entertain a motion for North Point Properties.
I move that the North Point Properties Plat A preliminary plat be approved by the Planning Commission, subject to staff's findings and conditions.
Second?
Got a motion by Commissioner Ernst, a second by Commissioner Mitchell. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next agenda item we've got is preliminary plat for Swift Creek Amendment.
If this item looks familiar, hopefully you recall we just had it July.
It was a good
If it doesn't
discussion.
look familiar, then we can chat afterwards. So the reason why this is different is this is a master plan development, and so the land use authority would be the city council, and so we did take your action in July, and then it was approved by the city council, I believe, July 13th. The most significant change that we're seeing tonight is, if you recall, out by 3400 East and the railroad, there was a future phase just south of the Baum property.
Now,
And so the applicant has come back to the city and is requesting, they're anxious to move on to the final plat, and we're excited to see this project move forward. But first, we needed to square away the preliminary plat, so it's back before you tonight. You can see there in the future phase area, we have 5 lots being created with the knuckle and the extension of 1400 South. And then up on the north side of the project, where you see the lots labeled 5 through 14, there was one additional lot added there. Great project. The average lot size only diminished slightly. The average lot size is still over 15,200 square feet. And it adds this additional future phase area. Now, the majority of the conditions that you see in the staff report and the recommendation, those are carryovers from the first review that you and the city council had in July. And so if you have any questions, we'd be happy to discuss any of those, or if you have any questions on the project, I'd be happy to try and address those as well.
Have these conditions been addressed in this latest version?
Some of them have.
Here's
Most of
some.
them will come into play with the first final plat. And so, for instance, if you look at number 8 and number 6, those would be submitted with the final plat. And so we're just memorializing some of those conditions for that purpose. Others, in my opinion, have been addressed, like number 4 and number 5, but those remain at the request of the DRC,
No,
who would be the land use authority for the final plat.
There's more than one already for each lot.
So with this development, everything will be improved all the way up to the railroad track? Is that where this is?
I think the railroad tracks are a little
probably
beyond
beyond. So up to the property line
property.
on that road, everything, sidewalks, everything will be put in.
Trying to remember, we don't have it in this image, but I think we amended it so the trail doesn't go to the all the way to the railroad tracks.
think it's
follows
right here, right?
1400 south
Yeah.
and then heads north, if I remember right.
Yeah, it cuts off right
So
there.
it comes straight through like this and then down.
Then the sidewalk comes
And
through
there's like a
and
20-foot
down.
hole right here.
Is this,
The trail getting up to
Right.
the at grade would be tough.
is this a sidewalk? What's this
No, so the
then?
trail comes out north of Lot 40.
Right here?
Yep.
Yeah. So there's no sidewalk.
That would be trail 44 and 43 along 3400.
We'll have a trail.
43 through 40 would be a masonry wall backyard. There's no walkway or access back there.
Okay.
Right on the railroad.
Yeah.
It's on the bottom of the embankment.
What would the north part of this road look like?
So that abuts the Baum property, and Mike and I actually had a discussion on that, and we'll finalize those details with the final plat. It really depends on where that ditch falls. In some cases, if there's room, you'd see the finished sidewalk. If there's not room, then we may see a fence if it's needed for protection or safety. But we also need to reach out to the Baums and coordinate with the applicant as far as how that ditch is going to be continue to be used and where any excess water might spill over.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Applicant is here tonight. We appreciate them being in attendance.
Do either of you have anything you'd like to add to what's been discussed?
I don't think so. No, it just, I think maybe in this,
Sorry, do you mind? Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah.
Craig Jacobson for the applicant. I think maybe in this meeting back in July, the question was asked, what are you going to do with that? I think it was Mr. Mendenhall that asked, and you know, when push came to shove at the end, we thought, why are we waiting? Let's just get the whole thing done. And so that's really all we've done here is just add in that little triangle and finish
finish
up
it
the
off.
thing all in one shot.
Okay.
While you're up, we were talking about the possibility of having a couple of spots between lots here that would access the trail that runs along the railroad tracks is, I believe, or have we repositioned that?
So that was actually.
Did we reposition?
Stand on the side of you, no worries. And jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was discussed extensively with the DRC. And what you see currently is we have a trail access here on this cul-de-sac.
Right.
And then a trail access here on this turn of the road. They did discuss potentially doing one mid. I can't remember the exact reasons, but the DRC didn't feel comfortable with that.
There's a safety issue to it as well. If you don't make it big enough, wide enough, lit, then it becomes a design that potentially could cause harm.
Okay.
It invites incidents.
Very good.
Okay, any additional questions for staff or for the applicant? And if there are none, then I would entertain a motion.
It's a recommendation.
Okay, recommendation for city council on this one. Okay.
Jesse, you got
It's
it?
me. I move that we recommend the Swift Creek amended preliminary plat with the findings and conditions from staff.
Got a motion from Commissioner Cardin,
Second.
second from Commissioner Mendenhall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the next item, zone change and preliminary plat. This will be a public hearing. This is for Cedar Heights.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Mr. Keel, the applicant, being here with us tonight. I think we're probably going to have some, maybe just discussion about what's proposed. We've had a number of different conversations with Mr. Keel about his property and some things that he's done there already, some things that he'd like to do. And we had an opportunity last month, like we talked about Mr. Keel, to have a little bit of a conversation, at least with this group, about the proposal. And since then, we've conversed with Mr. Keel about some of the thoughts and suggestions that you gave us that night. And that all being said, this is a little bit, it feels a little bit awkward for me. Also, I think it feels like the right thing to do by way of staff, both me and collectively the Development Review Committee, bringing this proposal tonight to the Planning Commission, really without a specific recommendation. We don't like to do that. We feel like it's our responsibility to give you guys maybe some guidance in the form of our best thoughts. But this is a proposal where I really think it's a matter of what your priorities are as the city's, collective voice for how land use matters should be handled. What the applicant would like to do simply is to subdivide a property that, but for about 1,000 square feet, could be subdivided administratively. Because the property is several hundred feet shy of 12,000 square feet, which is what's required to do two 6,000 square foot lots, which would meet the city's minimum lot size requirements for the R16 zone. Their only option to be able to do anything with the property other than to have a single family home on it with an accessory apartment is to have the infill overlay approved with the R16 zone. They could do a few different things with that. What they've proposed to do is to simply subdivide the southern 5,000 or 5,500 square feet or so from the portion of the property that the existing home would be left on, which also would be a 5,000 or 5,500 square foot lot, and then be able to construct a single family home on the new lot. The applicant's owned the properties, I understand it, for a few months now. He has made some improvements to the property in the form of, I think, doing some interior repairs to some of the services there, things like plumbing, I understand, different things like that, as well as recladding the home with vinyl siding. So I guess I just offer that as kind of a little bit of background as to where we are now. Really, I think for us as staff, the things that cause us really to pause prior to, maybe giving a strong endorsement of what the applicant wants to do here, there is a garage that's attached to the home that all of the records that we have suggest was built, not by the applicant, but decades ago by somebody without a building permit. And I don't believe it's ever met the city's setback requirements. So on the east side of the home on the east side of the home up to basically the property line on the east, there's an attached garage that doesn't meet the city's setback requirements. We struggle recommending that projects get approved when they're non-conforming in that way, or when there's just something that otherwise is a violation of the zoning code. That being said, we do require homes to have enclosed garages, at least space for one vehicle in an enclosed garage. So a remedy for the setback issue would be potentially to remove that garage and build it someplace else on the property for the use of the existing home. And if that could be done, and we're done, then that would remove one of the things that, again, it gives us a staff pause in terms of recommending approval of the creation of a new lot. There's some other things as well that I'd say are maybe less significant than that. That we've had some situations in the past with the types of materials that people have used on the exteriors of infill overlay projects, and the city's been really pretty consistent from the beginning about not allowing vinyl siding to be used. In cases like this, that then becomes an issue, particularly given that the applicant just in the last few months has installed vinyl siding on the outside. That being said, in my mind, that's one of the maybe less significant things compared with the garage.
Unpack enclosed garage, unpack it. Covered garage doesn't count, carport doesn't count.
We define it very clearly down to dimensions, minimum dimensions that have to be met in order for something to qualify as a garage.
Enclosed.
Enclosed on four sides?
Enclosed is an important part of it, yeah. That's the word we use.
Yeah.
Yep. So carports, for example, that would not satisfy that, yeah.
And single garage is what?
That's all that
is
we
required.
require. We do require space additionally beyond that for parking for a single-family home, but just one garage space. I'll mention this too. So just by way of the last conversation we had with the Planning Commission about this, we did talk about potentially relocating the driveway. Just to reiterate that that has been talked about. Right now, the access to the existing home is on 3rd South. We talked about potentially changing that to where there might even be a shared driveway coming to the existing lot and a new lot from 5th West. I understand for different reasons the applicant's not very excited about pursuing that.
Well, the size of the second lot would be, if it abided by setbacks, how big could the second lot be if there was a shared driveway with a garage?
Conceivably, yeah. Conceivably, the driveway wouldn't impact necessarily the size of the lot, but you're right. And in fact, I think.
Carport or the.
Garage?
Go ahead. Yeah, garage, enclosed.
Yeah,
garage.
if they were to.
Here's a pointer.
So, and again, I don't mean to chase this if it's a, really not a realistic option, but if this structure were to be torn down and to be relocated in close proximity to the home, maybe here, and a shared drive could be built there that would access both that garage and this property and also serve, that lot. You probably would have lots then that aren't the same size. The one with the existing home probably would be larger, but we do have lots that are narrower than what that lot could be in town. That likely would be one of the things, though, that would get talked about as part of the infill overlay, because I think it would make sense to consider maybe a shorter rear setback, maybe lesser side setbacks and that type of a thing for a structure that would be built here. But we haven't ever let anybody go closer than 5 feet to a property line in the
How close is
R16
that?
zone.
A foot,
I would guess.
6 inches?
If that, yeah, something on that order. It's I mean, practically speaking, it's at the property line, I would really say. So again, I just mentioned that.
Would the city allow it to go closer to, is that 50s? So if it went along the side of the house, but loaded from the back, so it still has shared drive, but the garage is on that property?
We really, really like to have at least 20 feet
Right.
of driveway, but up to 20 feet. Speaking for myself, I'd be very comfortable with that.
Dave, does the city allow shared structures between two lots?
We do. There are a few places in town where we have garages that have a firewall right down the middle of them on the property line, and that's shared, yeah.
Yeah, my grandparents' old house had that where they got one side of the garage, the neighbors had the other, had a wall down the middle, but it was one structure, but that was years ago. I didn't know if that was before anything changed. So realistically, if they wanted to, they could build a single structure, 2 garage doors, single garage doors, one structure that would meet both buildings if that were.
If that were to happen, then we'd simply require that there be 5 feet from that 2-unit garage, if you will, to each home. So that's how we look at that. That would be freestanding, and we'd
So
require
they would
that
not
5
be
feet.
attached to, like the new home that were to be built would have to be detached from that garage.
At least if we were to treat it like we have other situations, that's how it would be, yeah.
Unless they applied for a duplex in the infill overlay zone.
Which is a totally different animal, right?
Yeah.
Which frankly, if we could go back in time, I think that would have been a great option to have explored further, yeah.
Okay.
But that all, so those are maybe more of the concerns. Some of the things that I absolutely think are positives, I can just say these really quickly. Right now, the park strips here, I would guess probably decades ago, were filled in with asphalt, chain link fence around this property. This property here is absolutely an eyesore. Opportunity to get new investment and construction in a neighborhood, have a contemporary home built here, to have asphalt replaced with grass and trees, different things like that. I mean, I think there are a lot of upsides for the city approving the infill overlay so that simply another building lot can be created here. Somebody can build a new home there. I think but for the infill overlay being approved, there's probably a really high likelihood that the property stays much like it is going forward. And that's really the conundrum that we've been in. I think there are a lot of different ways to look at what makes the most sense for the city. I think it's impossible to look at this situation entirely in a vacuum, given that your approvals and the council's approvals, they do mean something, you know, as we evaluate other projects and try to be consistent and different things like that. But yet, particularly the infill overlay is designed to give you and the city council an opportunity to consider each situation on its own merit and things of that nature. So, again, don't like, kind of just punting. That's really what we're doing here, though, is looking to get your advice and thoughts going forward. I think you could take a lot of different action tonight, and staff's going to be very comfortable with that. I think it might be helpful to hear from the applicant as well if I've missed anything that he wants to add. But I'd be happy to answer any questions also if you have anything for me.
Thanks, Dave. Let's hear from the applicant if we can.
Thanks, Dave.
My name is Sam Keel. My agent is here with me. Sheree Kilpack is with me today.
Thanks. Sam, could you repeat your name again?
Sam Keel, Keele.
Thank you.
And we bought this in June. And at the time that we bought it, there was a hint that it could be either split or made into a, as you said, a duplex, which is what prompted me to pursue it.
Sam, a hint by who? Where did you get this hint?
This land?
No, the hint that it could be split.
Oh, from people.
You?
Well, it's R16 zone.
Yeah, and also the people who were selling it, somebody had done some research, and but most everybody, myself included, were afraid of the house because it was in
The age, type of construction.
its age. It's 120 years old, and there was a lot of roadblocks for us, a lot of problems. That we had to spend some money fixing it. So basically, right now, the house as it is like almost like new. It's almost like a new house. The plumbing is warranted. The new siding is warranted. We've replaced all the lighting fixtures with brand new things. So the house is going to be there for a very long time because of what we did. But then as I pursued it and I got into it, and your Dave and Brandon, very, very, very kind, and Kimberly also, because I'm not a developer. I just saw an opportunity and went for it. But for me looking at this, to take those park strips and make them match all, and I've met all the neighbors. Everybody is nice. The neighborhood is nice. It's a beautiful neighborhood, but particularly 1, 2, and 3, and then the one right up there is also being remodeled. So it's a beautiful neighborhood. So you've got this brand new little house for 120 years old. And then
Here you go. And then you can stay close to the mic.
turn this guy right. Is that better? A little bit better?
Yes, sir.
So up here, this guy's being remodeled. This is lovely over here. This is lovely, this is lovely. And I've met this fellow here. They're super nice. I don't speak Spanish, but these people are super nice. We've all been eating the plums and peaches off of this tree. But here you have a 700 square foot house, which we want to split right down the middle, right there. And it's, I named it Cedar Heights because that one, and that one are these, they got to be 80 or 90 years old cedar trees. They got to be 80 feet tall. But in my opinion, if this is not done, if this is not split and something done here, somebody's going to buy this, and it's going to be a rental for the rest of its life. And then if this is turned into a rental, and we're not allowed to go forward, this will continue to be just weeds and trash and mice and snakes. And right here, this was built with the house. Because if you go down inside of it, you can see it's a root cellar. It's got to be at least 100 years old. But then this outbuilding here is just, it's literally 2x4s and fence planks, double high. And then they ran a right from the top here, right over there, just some Romex, and down into a pipe. It'll make you laugh if you saw it. Anyway, I am proposing returning this to a park strip, tree, 2 trees, whatever your standard is, whatever the standard is, and to match all this, and take this and tear this, put a fence right here. Tear this down. There's also some stuff right in here, another little outbuilding and a dog run, and it's really ugly. And then we've got a little house. This little guy here.
It's in our packet.
What is your back?
Yep.
And I was working with my engineering at Atlas Engineering, and we came up with this one, which would fit so nicely right there with the proper setbacks that were recommended by Dave and Brandon, and it would fit nicely right there. And it matches this fellow and this and Maryland over here on the back. It's of course it's not 100 years old, but you can see it, the style. This fits right in, and we were looking for that, something that would fit right in there. And you would have a nice 1,200 square foot home, 1,187 square foot that would sit right there. Have a nice little backyard here. Have a nice little front yard with as we were talking about, the enclosed garage. We'd have one car garage, a nice porch on the front, nice porch on the back. In my opinion, this would beautify. It would just beautify the neighborhood. What we have planned would take something that is not beautiful. Well, our house is now beautiful. We made it beautiful, but it would take something right here that is not beautiful and make it beautiful. But this house is killer now after we've gotten finished with it, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Don't go too far, we might have some questions for you.
Okay, yeah, I'm staying right here. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and move into public hearing. Okay, we're going to move into public hearing, and then after public hearing, we'll address any other questions and comments that we might have. So at this point, if there's anyone in the room that would like to speak to this zone change, come on up, state your name, and let us know what you
Hello,
think.
my name is, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Mandy Peck, and I have loved this lot. Since I was a little girl, I would go and I'd visit the sweet little lady that lived in this corner lot. And so it means a ton to me. And it's been an awesome pleasure to get to know Sam and to see the beautiful work that he's done to this home. And that's been really exciting. I think for myself, I do see how it's an eyesore. I get that part. But I also do see how it could make it to where the house on the other side, where there'd be it's pretty tight. It would make it to where that home would be pretty close to their lot as well. And the home is pretty small. It's really small.
You're talking about this one?
Yes.
Then
Yes,
you're saying
existing home.
if a new home were built here, you're saying it would be pretty close to this one?
Yes.
Okay.
And you would need to take down like the barn or the garage that's there, the brown one that's kind of by the trees or whatever. You'd have to take that out. And for whoever that was moving into that home, there's not a lot of space for them in the beginning to just live in general. So to have the garage or the barn that's there now, it's kind of nice for them to at least have that extra space for those that are moving into that home. The other thing they could do with that, so it's not such an eyesore, is to put up a little playground and some rocks around it to where their kids could go outside and play. Yes. So I think that's my biggest concern, is just for those that live next door, to where it would create a lot less space for them and feeling a lot more enclosed. And yeah, but I also do really appreciate what Sam has done to help restore something that means something to our city and the people that lived there before. So.
Thank you, Mandy. Anybody else?
I'm Cherie Kilpack. This doesn't sound like it's doing anything from where I sit, but it does, huh?
TV.
Okay. So I am Sam's real estate agent, and I just wanted to speak to a few things that I've thought about as he's been working on this house. And as I've talked to him, as he's been working through all of this with Dave and everybody. So in regards to, first of all, the garage, it seems like to me that garage has been there long enough that it should be grandfathered in. Whether or not that kind of flows with the current, oh, there we go. Hey, it kicked in. Good job.
Adam took care of
Techie guy. That was perfect.
No excuse.
Nope, now you can hear me. So I just know from driving the streets of this area for 30 years now that there are hundreds of homes with garages that are very, very close to property lines. And they've been there for years and years, and nobody has thought a thing about them, and they haven't heard a thing. And it's been there for I don't know how long, but it is what it is type thing. It would just be so sad for him to have to tear that down and move it and rearrange everything. It'd be an extra expense when already expenses are so high with construction and building. It just seems to me that that would be, I don't know, unnecessary. Because then that just makes the second lot a lot less usable area if you have to have another garage on that side. And already there's driveways that go onto that road, and yes, it's a busier road, but that also does create more privacy for each of the homes if they have kind of their own entrance into their home and they're separated. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but one example would be Sunset Park, where they have shared driveways, and nobody wants a shared driveway. I mean, if you don't have to have a shared driveway, that's not the most ideal thing, right? Would you guys want to share your driveway? I think that it's much more saleable and much more appealing to have your own driveway and have your own privacy that way. And you could have a fence and everybody's separated and happy. I would agree with the neighbor that, yes, ideally, this home would have a nice big lot and someone would buy it and improve it and make it wonderful and beautiful, but you just don't have any control over that, so you don't know what somebody's going to do with it and what they're not, and they may have really good intentions when they buy it and for whatever reason not be able to do what they want to. So I do think a beautiful little home right here would be a wonderful upgrade to this neighborhood. I think it would improve all the property values in that little neighborhood, and you guys know as well as I do that affordable housing is at a very, very low number right now. So it would be very nice to have a little home to sell to a cute family who would be so grateful to have a nice little home in a nice neighborhood. And that's basically a dead-end street where the cemetery is at the end. So it's very quiet. It's just very lovely. So I think it would improve your town, the neighborhood, and that home, even though, yes, he did siding on it, it is like a million times better than what it was. I don't know if any of you were familiar with that home the way it was, but it was a crack house, basically. It was falling down, a mess. So it's much, much better. A duplex, obviously, if you didn't want that second lot, would be an option, or a twin home even. But I think nobody, everybody wants single-family homes in a neighborhood with single-family homes. So I think that's, a good thing to kind of stick with. So I think that's all I can think of. Yeah, he's going to redo the park strips, so they're going to be nice and green and pretty again with the trees. It's just going to be, it's going to be a big improvement rather than a little, you know, a big lot of weeds. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Trudy. Yeah, you bet.
Also, Dave and I were talking, and you can jump in, where we put in to this second lot, that we put in that this is what needs to be built there. And we would sell it as this house, because we've set it up so that it meets all the setbacks on both sides and the setbacks on the front. It meets the criteria for your driveway. Wasn't there something else we were gonna put in there too? Or there was something else that we were gonna put in that where the buyer would have to come back, or the buyer would have to adhere to what you recommend for this lot. Do you remember what that was?
It'd just be the image that you have in the staff report.
Is what would,
Before we issue a building permit, we make sure that the proposal either
Is
matches that or it's
very
really
close.
Yeah, yes. Is that possible to enforce that on somebody who's bought the lot?
So there's this, that's, I think this is the point that Mr. Keel's making, is that should you, ultimately the city council approve the creation of an additional lot, this is what we'd expect to see built there.
Yeah.
And but for somebody submitting building plans that are very, very consistent with that look, design, we would not issue a building permit.
It's an interesting deed restriction. Never read a deed restriction like that. That'd be
It probably would
an
be.
interesting read.
I doubt that it would be a deed restriction. It would simply be a matter of part of the approval that we would follow through on when we review somebody taking the next step to construct somebody there, or something there.
in all reality, with the lot size what it is, I don't know that you're gonna have too many options anyways, right?
No, you would not. You would not, particularly,
Infill overlay zone construction standards, if they had to comply with that, it would suffice? Or you're thinking something even more specific?
This would be part of the approval, is how we view it. And it'd be memorialized that way as part of the approval.
What if the next buyer who buys that land, who owns that land, who now owns property, wants to put stone, a stone exterior?
Yeah, if it's generally consistent, I won't say that we would always get it right, but if we view that it's commiserate in terms of quality, look, feel, style, and things like that, I think we'd issue a building permit. If we had questions about it, and we've done this a few times in the past, we'd probably bounce it off you or the city council. So what do you think? But absolutely the idea would be that this proposal is respected and this is what happens.
And the reason you'd want that in there is because you'd be concerned of what else
yeah, somebody's
going
gonna
up
build
on
it
that lot.
somebody wanting to,
Something like that,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
A two-story.
And Mr. Keel, you don't have the intention of building this home. You have the intention of selling the home with the
existing
possibility of having this lot
that's correct.
available
That's
to be built upon.
That's correct. I'm not a big,
You're not going to develop it.
I'm really tempted because of some of my friends, but wow. It's I will not be building. No.
Okay, so your intention right now is to sell the existing home with this as one property that has the ability to be split?
Or could you sell them
Or
separately?
are you asking tonight
That's what I'm
that we
asking.
split the property into two
Okay.
properties?
Isn't the property for sale right now? There's been a sign on it.
We could sell it, one of the two ways. We'd probably just sell it to whoever's the highest and best with whatever they want to do that way, but either.
Can you come to the mic?
Either he's gonna develop it or someone else.
Will buy it, someone else will buy it with, we're going to sell it as
Are you
a
gonna sell it
papered
as
lot.
both properties combined?
Yes,
Don't plan on
well,
selling
no, no,
one
no,
property and then
no.
selling the
If
other
we get the
property.
approval from you guys and then the city council, I guess, does it have to go to the city?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we'll probably wait for that and then hopefully we get the approval and then we can list it as a single-family home and a single-family lot. That's probably the way we'll list it. And then if we get someone who wants to buy both, great. and then they'll do what they want with it, but at least we can sell it. We have a little bit better value that way, obviously. And so we would hope.
That's the intention, is to split it and sell them both.
And we've got quite a bit of interest in that.
Yeah, because the price is, relatively speaking, is low.
That would make for a great price on the corner house and a great little lot for somebody to build a very cute little home on. It would be just a great opportunity for a couple of families.
Thank you. Still in public hearing, is there anyone else that would like to address us? Just one? Okay.
So the garage on the existing home was there before the other house next to it was built. So that went through something like this, to where the house was built closer to that original line. So that's why that's so close right now. And the other thing that'd be really awesome is if you want to turn that little lot into a tiny home lot, that would be great. So thank you. Appreciate
It will be a little home.
It'll be a little home on a little lot.
Thanks, Mandy.
Michael, with what Mandy just said, what's the setback between that house to the east and the property line? Can we see that? Because obviously that garage is not, I mean, it's on the line. It's not conforming at all. One more block.
It's over. From that area, it's over.
Too close, Mike. Should still draw.
The suspense.
Oh, well,
Oh, boy.
Speaking, it'll draw the building lines?
on or close to it.
There's a tree in the way, so don't make ours.
There's a fence there right now. There's a fence and it's a few inches.
18 right here.
Right. I'm not talking about that distance between 536 and the property line is.
Find a door that would be about the same.
Yep, there it is.
That window.
So it's closer than they were granted,
2 garbage cans.
yeah, it's 2 garbage cans with.
And the home on the left was built after that garage existed.
Yeah. So they were allowed to build closer to the property line than was probably allowed. That still doesn't change the fact that that garage is on the property line
Yeah.
And that was likely a garage, I would guess.
at one time and then
Yes.
filled in. Looks like it was.
What was that, what did you say?
That was probably a garage where their cars get there, but
Oh,
they
here.
closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
And you can see the seam.
Yeah.
Wow.
May change the sides.
Yeah, filled it in. Yeah.
We could also put a driveway on the other side where they could park off of 50 East as well. That could be something you could require. Not move the garage, but allow additional parking off of that street.
I don't think.
It just seems, if nobody minds the garage being there now, it's not really anything.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move out of public hearing, if that's all right. Okay, we are out of public hearing, so at this point, we will, if anybody has questions, additional comments, what's everyone thinking with this one?
I have a few comments, and I agree with the applicant and everybody that has spoken so far, that all of the things that have been done, but they weren't done properly from the beginning. You know, the garage is there, but it shouldn't have been. You know, when that house was built, although it was a garage, you know, they did set back from the property line enough. Also, when you come to change a property, that's when the city has the opportunity to come in and say, there are certain things that don't meet the standards. And so if we were going to do something with this property, then we have to meet the standards as well. And that's a hazard that everybody has, whether you buy a commercial piece of property or a residential piece of property or whatever else. Part of that may be that you have to bring things up to the codes and standards that are set forth. And that's one of the things that we have to determine here now. I don't think there's any doubt that a home on that lot is going to improve the neighborhood. I have no doubt at all. But the question remains, does that satisfy the things that have been done? And Mr. Keel, I can understand that you went forward with this improvement of the old house with every intention of making it worth more money and being able to flip the house. Let's face it, that's what we're doing here, is you bought a property for a lot less than you're going to sell it, and that's why you bought it. However, there are several things, you know, that I know that you came and talked to Dave and to the staff and got some ideas on that, but it would have been helpful had you come to us prior to that and said, this is what we propose to do with the property. Rather than, I mean, you did do that, but if we would have gone through this process before you began what you're doing, then, you know, we may have had other options and things like that. And you may have determined that it's not worth your time and effort, or 700 square foot house, you know, to tell you the truth, most developers would probably have just raised the house and started over with an infill overlay to build something else. Either 2 homes, a duplex, maybe even a 3-plex, something like that. And these kinds of things come before us all the time. But we're kind of in a position where the cart is now in front of the horse. And so, you know, that's the reason that we have questions and why we're asking about these things, is because if we do this here, then it's like Cherie said, there's dozens of homes just like this in the area, and probably 100 homes like this in Spanish Fork. And so does that leave us open to having to require those things? Cherie made the comment about the garage that's been there for a long time, and it's true, it's been there for a long time, and we haven't really brought that up all that much, other than, you know, it's non-conforming now that you are asking to do something else. And, you know, you can do a mirror image of that house and put the garage on the other side and come closer to having something that would be shared and things like that. But I think that there's still some questions. And one of the things that we discuss all the time is that the infill overlay, one of the requirements of it is that the property that is there is improved, you know, and I don't think there's any doubt that it looks better. My question to you would be tonight, did you do anything structurally? I mean, was there anything structurally done to the home to improve it? It's obviously a 100-year home. I don't know what kind of foundation is under it. You know, you can put all kinds of stuff in there, plumbing and flooring and light fixtures and everything like that, and it all looks good. But what's inside the walls? Is it all knob and tube wiring? Is it, you know, is there a cellar under it? Is there a crawl space? Is it a rock foundation? You know, what's there? And because you come to us after you've done all those things, you know, now we have to look at that and say, well, what's required of us? Where before we could have said, hey, take a look at this and see what you got. One of the things that we don't think is an upgrade is aluminum siding. There's not very many people that are putting aluminum siding in anymore. There's a good reason for that, and I think you guys know. You know, Cherie, you know. If it's hardy board, it's one thing. If it's aluminum, you know, and I understand why you do it, because you've got a profit margin that you're trying to reach. So.
Pardon, it's vinyl and aluminum?
It is vinyl.
It's vinyl? Okay, it's vinyl rather than, and we're not too crazy about vinyl either, you know. We're trying to push for an upgrade, and you know, vinyl actually has some traits, you know. I've got a brother whose boys every winter break 3 or 4 of the vinyl slats because they're playing baseball in the spring when it's still cold. So, you know, I mean, there's some issues there. Anyway, that's the comment I have, and that's why we're asking you these questions and why we're going through this whole rigmarole, is to try and understand, not understand. We need to come to a place where we can agree on what needs to be done, what should be done, and obviously, if you're not going to be the builder, or you're not going to be the developer of that second lot, we at some point in time will hand that over to the staff to make sure that it's done. Now we've got a third party that comes in, and you know, will they come in and say, well, if I'm going to live in this, I'd rather do this, or I'd like to go 2 stories, or you know, and you're right. If you say that this is what's going to be built, we'll try to stick as close as we can to that. But you know, the next owner they have the right to come to us again and say, okay, this is what they said, but you know, can we put rock on it? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we brick it? And so, you know, it's kind of a second bite at the apple, if you will. So that's my comments, and that's why we're kind of, you know, we've got concerns about it. Let's just put it that way. So I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have got to say.
Who's next?
Echo John's statement. A little less long-winded than that. I'd agree with what he was saying.
That was a great synopsis.
It was. Actually pretty.
Well, that was the epistle form.
Cliff notes.
It was a long story long.
Cliff notes, some Reader's Digest.
So,
Epistle of John.
So it does seem to me that we're in a situation where some work has been done that we would not have led an applicant to if this had came to us as a typical infill project. There would have been guides, monthly we have guidance on what the exteriors will look at. We did last month, we had the month before, on what would require done to upgrades to the existing unit. If this is going to be another single-family home or an ADU development or a duplex or any type of multifamily. And we have not had that opportunity with this property. I'm fine with the garage being where it's at if it stays one lot, but the moment somebody comes in and asks us to divide that lot, we then have the opportunity to ask that it conform in other ways. And one of my requirements would be that garage be relocated, moved, removed, but it had to be relocated somewhere else that would fit with the staff's requirements for it. I do think that it's a shame. I think if this could have been approached in the proper order, I think it would have been great to have had this work on from the planning of it done at the start, so this lot could have been improved. Because I agree with what John was saying. It would be nice to have, and what the applicant has said, it'd be great to have a house on that lot. I think the home they have is very desirable in their plans. I just wish it was coming as a package together. For that reason, I would lean against not approving this, and without those conditions, of the garage being moved and probably an upgrade to the exterior also. My opinion is I wouldn't have approved that before, so why would I approve it now? But that's kind of a secondary to me also.
Okay. I'll get up to bat, Commissioner. Go with that. All right. So from a macro level, Sam, thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing an infill overlay zone application. I am a huge fan of the infill overlay zone because it encourages redevelopment in an area that would otherwise not be developed. You have an R16 zone. You're applying for the infill overlay zone because you need 2 lots that are less than 6,000 square feet. That's where it comes into play. So now the city has to look at this, and the infill overlay standards are such that whatever you're putting there needs to be at least as good as the neighboring homes, but actually likely better. Has been our standard, and the code requires that. So in this case, I understand you've mentioned 536 East. They may or may not care that they have a wall, which is the garage right next to them. But as a planning commission member, I take it pretty seriously to protect the property rights of everyone. And whoever buys that house in the future, that garage is non-conforming with the setbacks, and structures in the setbacks that are on the property line, That's, to me, one of the most egregious property right infringements and is affecting the neighbor the most. So, but on the heels of that, having said that, having two lots with new structures on it, you've improved the one you've improved the one that's there. That's great. Having the second lot developed is a huge benefit, in my opinion, to the community. It's something I'm hopeful, Sam, that you'll take our feedback and actually go the next step to finishing, because I think it's a big win for everyone involved. And I think it could be a win-win, a win for the city, a win for the community, and a win for you. And that's why you would do it, if that were the case. So my recommendation, I understand you have vinyl siding. It isn't better than the neighbors. It's a little bit worse, but it's something that potentially I could give on, but I couldn't give on the garage, because that's just too big of a infringement on the neighbors and the property rights of the future owners next door. But otherwise, I am all for it. I hope you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have mostly a good thing here, in my opinion.
Jesse?
I would echo everything that has been said, and I agree.
Could you say it word for word, what I just said?
Well, I'm just going to echo it.
Okay.
But the garage, it's something that sometimes we have things that happen throughout time in the city or wherever, and when things like this come to us as a planning commission, it's our opportunity to fix them or to ask for those improvements, and the garage would be the biggest thing. I think we've talked about siding, we've talked about some other things, park strips, those type of things. Having a home in that vacant lot that's just there right now would be an improvement to the city, but I think that there's other things that we have to look at as well, so that's where I would be at as well, with my other fellow commissioners.
Pretty much the same. So, like you mentioned, yeah, you could drive throughout the city and find many homes that have garages that are probably non-conforming. But the infill overlay gives the city and gives the planning commission an opportunity to fix those mistakes that happened in the past. And we try and make it a win-win for everybody. It's a win for us by taking a non-conforming property and making it conforming. It's a win for you because we're now giving you the opportunity to have that second lot and improve on your investment. And so we try and make it a win-win, but yeah, same thing, without making changes to that garage. And it's really a safety issue. The city has setbacks for a reason. And when you take a garage that's that close to another neighboring property, and if it were to catch on fire, that's a danger and a hazard to those neighbors as well. And so it's an opportunity for us to correct an issue that exists within the city. And so without relocating that garage probably to the west side of the property, I don't think that I would approve this. As far as the siding goes, I think similar to what Commissioner Ernest said, I could probably slide with that. Is it an improvement? Probably not, but you've made the investment at this point. I think I would probably let that one go so long as the garage were relocated. So, anything else? What?
It's out of order, I know, for me to ask a question, but.
Slippery slope, Cherie. You know better. Mapleton Planning Commission, you know better.
I know. I wasn't trying to pull rank. I didn't even mention that.
I did.
Thank you very much. I know we were there the other night together. Is there even room for a home on that small lot if we do a detached garage with two singles in the middle? Is there any envelope left? I mean much of any. Of course, there would be a tiny one, but.
So I'm not, Dave, you should answer that, but I'm hopeful you'll try and then let us know. That's my thought.
That's how I describe it. I think there is, but it remains to be seen.
I'd let the civil engineers work that out. See if it fits, see if the setbacks work.
Because the thing is, that home on the corner sits so far back from the corner, it doesn't leave any room.
It's too close to the center line.
There won't be any room for a garage for that home if we move the garage. If you require the garage, you would have to
What
just.
if it's on the north side?
What if you did it like
What if the garage is on the north
neighboring
side?
property, where you've got a driveway that comes back?
You
and
really want a garage on the front?
If you make it look
on
good, you
the
What if you built the
south?
home to the front, you did a driveway here with the garage to the back, and then you did a garage right here on this end? They don't need to share a garage. It means you'd have
I
less
don't
of a
think-
backyard, yes, but your garage would be in the back, your house would be in the front.
There's
have a
not
driveway
going to be
that goes
enough
around the side.
room
I
to park
don't
a
think
car.
that's- Kevin, I don't
in-
think that's for us to determine. I mean,
I mean, there are options, I believe.
Dave?
Yeah, and I really think we can't solve that right here, right now, but
I'd like to know
all
what you
over the
find out, though.
place,
I think you should bring it back.
throughout communities, homes are built on lots that are 3,500, 4,000 square feet, and they have some space setbacks and that type of thing, and they have garages. I mean, just even like the width of that lot there, putting that, they use that as perspective on how much wood
Is there a garage on that home?
on. If there's not, there could be,
But with the infill overlay, you do have to have a one-car garage.
you do, yes.
Enclosed.
That's gonna make it really
area
hard.
as well.
Oh,
Not a carport. I
yes.
thought about that as an option, apparently not.
No, yeah. Okay, well,
Okay. Dave, do you have anything else you want
I
to?
mean, I think there are a couple of things that the commission can do tonight.
Uh,
There are a lot
Should
of
we
things.
just continue it and see what they come up with?
Continue it, you could, or otherwise make a recommendation, but continue it would be what I'd recommend based on what I've heard you say. To
I
give the
think it's in their
application.
best, it's in the applicant's best interest that we continue it versus sending it to the city council for a denial.
Can you recommend approval with conditions?
We don't know what those conditions would be until you bring them to us.
I do.
Well,
Yeah, we
Well,
do. Move the garage.
You may not like the conditions that we give. It would be better for
we
you to
wouldn't
get with
define it.
your.
We just state that the garage needs to be
Relocated.
relocated.
and I guess at that point,
At that point, before you go to the city council, you'd probably want to have those conditions met before you present it to the city council.
We want to see it.
yeah, that would be helpful, so we don't have to wait a whole nother month.
You say it. Go ahead.
What, Kevin, wouldn't we want to see it again? So wouldn't it be best? I
Because
mean, I would-
there could be other issues that arise based on how they reconfigure it.
I don't know. I don't know that I need to, as long as I know the garage is being moved and it's not
That was my original
within the
thought.
setback and we know it's somewhere else on the property. I don't care that, I don't feel like I would need to see that, knowing that the city council is going to see it. If you guys feel otherwise, I'm not opposed either way.
How about staff? How about you guys, Dave? Would that be something that you would be comfortable with as well?
You're talking about a recommendation to approve subject to conditions being met?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this is a unique enough situation that we probably would want to have some indication that those conditions would be met before it went to the city council. If that makes sense, which practically speaking, from a time perspective, I'm understanding that
Garage. And then the
probably at the
second
most, frankly, at the most, yeah, really.
meet or exceed the
Conditions of the
construction standards.
key issues.
Yeah.
Would you treat the key issues
Totally
as
understand.
conditions of
Yeah.
staff?
Totally
And
understand.
maybe just
Kinda, I picked the ones that are most important to me.
the particular condition that I'm understanding is that the garage would be relocated and that the applicant would show how that would be addressed in connection with,
Well,
The
and
lot
par-
line
and the
being-
parking strip.
We have some others.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, are there, because I'm not seeing any conditions already in the staff report, right? So do we need to add all these conditions at this
Jesse?
point?
What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that I don't necessarily believe that I have to see it again, because if we're moving the garage, they're gonna move it either to the
All right.
side, to the back. But those other conditions, the park strip, specifically.
I'll take a
that was
stab
good.
at it. You guys can ghost me if you want, but I think I got it all.
We probably will, just either way, but
Yeah,
You
we're
should just
gonna-
ghost me for fun.
We will.
that's what we try to do.
Do it and see if the applicants feel like they can live with it as well before we vote on it.
Yeah, I
I like
think that's,
that.
That's
Or
more
do
of
you
a-
want to just?
I think we
it's
just,
more of a negotiation than I'm like.
I think we'd mentioned in the past
Honestly.
that when a motion's made, if
Give it a
there's any
second, yeah.
comment on the motion before we vote on it, that's.
So you shoot at it.
Should I just say what, I'll say, I could say what that motion would be. So my motion would be to have them comply with the infill overlay zone building materials for the second structure that meet or exceed the infill overlay zone building materials. That the applicant for both lots complies with landscaping, park strips fill in the park strips with landscaping and trees. Comply with all setbacks and fencing that's required with the infill overlay zone. That would be my.
Yeah, you're meeting the zone. Brandon?
Sorry. So
In-
Is that like a double or a home run? Triple?
Yeah. The only thing that's I'm cringing about is if you look at the infill overlay zone, the setbacks are project by project. And so when you say comply with the setbacks,
Fine,
are you
R16
talking the
zoning
R16, or are you
R16
talking?
setbacks,
But
yeah.
what we've heard from the applicant already tonight is he can meet most of them with the product, but not all of them.
See, and now you're
so
getting into what my thought
if
was,
we-
is if I see it again and there's a couple that they need a variance on, and it makes sense, I'd be game for that too. That's why I said originally, it's not in the applicant's best interest for us to vote on this, right?
Then my second
Joseph
concern
has
was.
just stated what our conditions
Yeah.
would be. Why can't we just continue it? They know what those conditions are.
You can take whatever action, I just, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to clarify.
Are you sorry to interrupt?
I am actually. I would love to sit down with the applicant and look at all options, whether it's detached ADUs or whatever it might be. The other thing is relating to the second home. If we're now relocating the garage, that's gonna reduce the width, is that footprint even an option anymore? Something to consider, I guess.
There was wind in my sails, and he sucked the wind right out of my sails.
It wasn't us this time.
Yeah. At least you got ghosted before you made the motion. I think, going back to what they said, for your best interest as the applicant, it's probably a good decision that we continue this. Just to make sure that everything's
Then we
in line.
we could talk about variances you need to other setbacks that might make sense
Is
to you.
there any chance you would allow the corner home without a garage? Is that a
City doesn't approve it. Yeah, it would have to have a.
A 700 square
garage,
foot
yeah.
home and no garage? Sure. Can you, you could sell that, actually. Of everyone, you still could. Yep, you could.
Yeah,
But
no,
Malibu,
it would,
Cherie can sell.
it would need to have the garage. City wouldn't approve it. We aren't supposed to and wouldn't approve it as well, so.
Yep.
Yeah, we'd have to change city ordinance for that to happen.
So I guess with that, I would make a motion that we continue this.
Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry. Yeah, so we will be meeting again early November.
You wouldn't have liked our conditions. It would have been worse for you.
I just need to be
So-
able to get marketing it as a buildable lot. That's the hard part, so we have to wait a whole month now. Well.
And it is too bad that that process wasn't started in
Yeah,
the spring.
I'm not looking.
And then all of your hard work would have been towards a certain goal.
Right.
And, you know, that's the sad part, is that you've done all of this work, and I'm sure it's great work. But, well,
Okay, thanks you
Good luck,
guys.
guys.
Yeah, good luck to you. All right, agenda item number 7, other business. Who's taking this one?
Oh, I thought we were adjourning.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I feel like this is the main event, but I kind of do.
Wait, there's more?
Odds out.
There's more.
Now that,
We take 5 minutes.
Mark Hampton's here.
now that you're warmed up,
Dave, we're gonna take 5 minutes. 5-minute recess.
minutes, I gotta find a drink of water.
All right. We've got everybody back, so why don't we go ahead and continue. So Dave, what do you got for us with other business?
just a couple of things. We'll take the big one first. We had a few minutes before the regular meeting and their work session, just kind of give them a quick overview of some of the bigger picture things that tie to what we'll talk about right here. I'll still go over most of those. I'll try to be kind of quick, though. The subject property, and I guess we've just kind of jumped to the meat of it, currently has a large industrial building on one of the larger parcels that's involved here. All of the properties that are involved with this proposal are currently under the same ownership, and recently, a group that we've worked with in the past has been able to put those under contract with the potential to purchase them and to develop them. And really tonight, I think we're just here for kind of a high-level discussion about kind of land use.
High level, but we want all the details. And we want,
And approval.
and we don't want any. All the time. We need to see all the elevations.
Just continuously.
We might.
Too soon, too soon.
There you go.
We've
So-
got that.
It's really simple. Again, there's a big building on one of the properties. That building has some financial value to the owner. Frankly, I think personally that just in terms of its usability going forward, it's pretty close in a lot of ways to the end of its usable life. From the city's perspective, in terms of what has been planned for the subject property, I think that's certainly the case. This is a land use that the city would like to see discontinued. That's why the general plan has designated this property for residential use, at least the majority of it. It's been for quite some time. Recently, the zoning was changed as well, which I think probably, as much as anything, was simply to try to preclude some new industrial uses from being located in the area, more than maybe to encourage the use to change here. But yet, certainly this is an area of the community that is changing. Sunrock will be developing their property, I could say redeveloping the property just to the south and west of this here. I think they'll probably start this next summer on that. What they proposed is, maybe for lack of a better way to put it, I would say a pretty nice subdivision, single-family detached homes on what for us are relatively good sized
Pretty
lots.
nice, not quite to very nice. We got this.
Pretty nice.
Pretty nice.
I would never speak
Pretty
You are
very
a
nice kind of
wordsmith.
terminology.
You are a
here.
wordsmith, so I'm just seeing.
Pretty nice is
Okay.
Top of the line.
Okay then.
as high as I go.
All right.
But again, areas changed. Commission's very, very well aware of some of the conversations we've had about other developments in the area where historically there have been some industrial uses and therefore industrial zoning and how that's played out, which has not been ideal. But potentially, I think all of that can kind of fade into the past with a proposal like the one that we'll talk about tonight. If we can turn on the general plan map, I'd like to kind of maybe just touch on a couple of things.
Dave, is this the outline of their plat, like right through here and then up and around?
All the way down the cell.
It is, those are the property lines.
This one too.
Just trying to figure out how much they have here, how much they're
Yeah.
selling.
It's this one all the way up through.
Yeah, so the subject properties, they actually straddle Main Street,
Right.
some are on the east side here,
Calpac.
and so forth. They straddle. several-
Calpac and Main Street.
Straddle, Calpac, and Main Street. Yeah, I mispointed there a second ago. I should keep it north of that, over here. This is low-density residential, is what that's designated. Mixed use then, with what the property owner owns on both sides of Main Street here. You know, that allows for densities of, I believe, up to 12 units to the acre, in combination with non-residential uses. So just from this perspective, I think as we talk about it going forward, it may make good sense to consider an amendment to this, just to be clear about perhaps allowing for some higher residential densities than what this calls for. I can't think of a better time for the city to take that kind of an action to clearly accommodate a proposal that I think accomplishes something that's really important for the community. I think also it's important to go through kind of the proper order of that, and to maybe start with this, and that's not to say that necessarily there'd have to be independent applications going down independent timelines. We could do different things concurrently. But I think for the densities that we'll talk about in just a minute, it probably makes sense to consider changing this map, and we could do that in more than one way, and get the applicants where, with their proposal, they're saying they want to be in terms of the number of units in the development. I think the pattern, though, that this plan, in a really big sense, contemplates, is worth respecting, and I think we'll see that even in the proposal, where they're talking about their most intense uses around Main Street, Narrowhead Trail, everything from there gradually steps down. I think that would be reflected in any changes that we make to this, and as well in zoning. So maybe we could throw up the current zoning, although I'm not sure it's really all that helpful. But Mike, if you can do that, I think maybe just relative to this.
Is there a placeholder?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been anticipated that this rural residential zoning would at some point in time be changed. It'd have to be for development to occur that's consistent with the general plan. And with that, any one of a number of different zoning districts could be utilized. In this case, I think we're probably talking about multiple zoning districts. And I guess part of my encouragement tonight would just be that as the Planning Commission looks at this iteration that you'll see tonight, and maybe subsequent ones, it'd just be that while respecting kind of that pattern that I think is really important. Again, having your most intense land uses around maybe like a hard corner where there's a signalized intersection, state routes and that type of a thing. And as we get closer to, for example, what Sunrock has here, single family homes on again, pretty good sized lots, that we try to just be somewhat aware of what might be viewed as being the most compatible next to that, and that sort of those patterns are what gets focused on more than whether one particular part of the property has 10 units to the acre, or 12, or 8. And I say that because I think that there may be some need to be a little bit flexible in terms of the density. This is not the first prospective developer that we've talked to about doing what's being proposed tonight, at least generally speaking. And because of different times, really detailed conversations we've had with other folks, I think I have a good feel for just how big of a challenge this is. Talking about a really high value on the property because of what exists there and what that currently means for the property owner. Pretty extensive costs to ready the property for a new use by way of just the demolition of a structure like what exists there today. Relocating roads to meet expectations that UDOT has. Dealing with some really, really challenging grades that the site offers. And I'll say this, all challenges that are developers' problem, right? We don't generally try to cater or bend to have the city's desires align with what developers need. But I think in this case, if there's not some willingness to do that, the community probably loses an opportunity that might be unique to see a change happen that could be very, very beneficial for the whole city. And that's just my opinion. So we're optimistic that this really could be an enhancement of the neighborhood, and that it could be that in a lot of different ways. And I don't mean to undersell the applicants in terms of what they know now and what their needs are and expectations or anything like that. But maybe just a couple of thoughts on the actual plan itself, Mike, if we can pull that up real quick, and then I'll let the applicants address us. Simply put, with Main Street being right here, the proposal would involve keeping the land that is on the east side of Main Street that's, again, under the same ownership as everything on the other side that we're talking about tonight. Open and undeveloped, some type of non-residential development then on the corner of Arrowhead Trail and Main Street. There's already a signal there. New public streets accessing Main Street here and Arrowhead Trail there. Cowpack Avenue, which was slightly relocated maybe 10 or 12 years ago. Intersection was redesigned to make it a little bit safer. That would be much more significantly relocated. Again, that's consistent with what UDOT has said that they would approve, is maybe one way to put it. And a pattern that would involve the most dense residential development along Main Street, then less density, and ultimately single-family homes as you get closer to Del Monte Road and Sunrock's property, like I said earlier, to the south. Big picture-wise, this is extremely easy. I think for me to support this is the kind of pattern that we've told other developers in the past that we think is practical, relative to the kind of intensity that we think is important to make the project financially viable. I think also this does create the right kind of neighborhood, kind of location like this. But we're really here tonight to just get your thoughts initially. I know the applicants have things they want to share. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer those, but
What are the three densities you have there? What are the size of the lots in the single family, and then what are the densities coming from the orange to the yellow?
roughly, let's say, roughly 20 units to the acre here. R4 zone, roughly 12 units to the acre there with probably a pretty dense townhome project. And I'm gonna say probably 3, yeah. So maybe just to talk about it from a zoning perspective, R4, R3, and either all R19 or R19 and R112, some combination.
And everything on Sunrocks was R112?
R112, and they have a little bit of commercial right here.
Yeah, on that intersection.
Hear from the applicants?
You bet.
All right, let's hear it.
Thank you. My name is Paul Washburn, and I appreciate Dave's presentation. This project, it's a great location. We're excited to be here in Spanish Fork City, and I think Dave has alluded that this property does have some challenges with it. Grade particularly, from coming off of Del Monte Road, there's about get down to this end of the project, about a 4 or 5 foot drop, but in this area we're closer to 7 or 8 feet. We have another sizable drop here of about 8 feet on average. Over here, we draw a line kind of like that, and it's a cliff. It's a major cliff. We're going to be ending up filling this property probably adjacent to Main Street about 10 feet, and as we get to the crest of the hill, some places as deep as 20 feet. In addition to that, we have a fairly large warehouse that has to be demolished. Unfortunately, built turn of the century with all of the hazards that we have to deal with in demolishing old buildings, getting those taken care of. In addition, we've been working with UDOT. I think you'll notice we're going to do a complete completion of Arrowhead Road. We're going to have acceleration and deceleration points everywhere. Relocate Kelpack Avenue, I think a much safer configuration. For our commercial area, there will be a right-in, right-out. An additional challenge we have with this property is probably from about this point, we can sewer it to the west. Everything else, we're going to be boring under Arrowhead Road and taking it through Ace Rents. We've worked out an agreement with them. We can take the sewer that direction. But again, a lot of challenges, and all of them incredibly expensive. But we also believe we're going to come up with a nice project here. Some of the highlights are the connectedness. We've got a trail system inside the project. This piece of property right here is going to be donated to the city of Spanish Fork. That will continue the river trail along. There is an access underneath the bridge here that will connect it with the other properties. I think this donation to the city alone is a pretty significant donation. And something that will work well. I think I sent over some pictures of some of the units. Maybe we can just jump to those real quickly. Townhouses, I'm not sure if this will be the exact style, but we want to have a quality development. One of the things you're going to learn about Rimrock Development is they do things first class. This isn't get in as cheap as we possibly can. It's do it the right way. And have projects similar to this. We'll have some of the stacked units. Yeah. I think we've got 3 or 4 slides of those. Maybe you can just click through those quickly. Again, we've projects basically all over Salt Lake and Utah County, and again, high quality.
So you had me at the first 2. That last one, not so fond of.
Don't build that.
We're not going to build that one.
Hey, as long as it's not aluminum.
That's good looking.
Going back to the original site plan, if we can, we want to build a quality project here. It's going to be an expensive thing for us to do. We've got the warehouses that are in place in this location. Some of them have leases, and we're going to have to work for probably another year to get them through. But when we get done with this, I don't think we're gonna have a good development or even a pretty good development. I think we're gonna come back and say, based with the challenges we did, what we produced for the city, this is gonna be an extraordinary development. It's something you're gonna be really proud of when we're finished with.
What are you planning for amenities there in your common area?
Common area, there'll be a clubhouse, there'll be a swimming pool, there'll be the trails. We're still evaluating some additional things. I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe end up with a pickleball court or,
Like 8 of them, maybe? That'd be great.
well,
So-
maybe the city could put some down here, I don't know.
So you'd make it an HOA?
Excuse me?
You'd make it an HOA?
There will be an HOA.
Would you include the single families as part of the HOA then? No, they'd be
No.
separate from the
This would be
HOA?
a separate deal. This will be an HOA with all the maintenance done. This will be a separate HOA here.
Okay.
Have a commercial property here, not quite sure who's gonna develop there, but with the right in, right out at this location, we worked with the UDOT to get a full access onto Main Street, again with acceleration, deceleration lanes. We're gonna do this right.
Let me ask you a question on this then.
Yeah.
With the commercial, is this your only access, or do you plan on, would there possibly be another access down here somewhere?
Well, you'd have the full access here. There's not gonna be a wall here. This commercial development would just be on this side of the street with some accesses onto it. If you were coming up Arrowhead Road, you would come in here. If you come down Main Street, you would come in here. And
So you can't cross over Arrowhead to get in from Arrowhead, but you can.
You can't cross here, you can't cross here, but you could access it anywhere down here.
Right.
Okay.
And more importantly, is as you come in this location, you can come out here and you have red light to help you get back onto Arrowhead or whatever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Arrowhead Trail is a limited access highway, whole different set of rules. It's interesting. Main Street's much easier to deal with than
Arrowhead.
But we've been
That's
working with
interesting.
UDOT for probably the last 3.5, 4 months, and I think we've come up with a pretty good configuration that'll work long-term for the city.
I have a question about the 2 water tanks that are there. I understand that they were
They're beautiful,
originally
aren't
put in for
Would you like
fire
them?
protection.
Would you like to have them?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. What are you gonna do with them? There's no value to them there, is there?
Value to them.
To anybody?
They will be taken down.
So you'd let me come and get it, back my pickup and trailer under them and pack them off? Okay.
Absolutely.
Walt. There's a question for Walt right there.
They're kind of,
Paint them green.
since
Paint
they
them
were
green.
required, they're kind of a landmark.
So I got a couple other questions for you.
Certainly.
I think Commissioner Cardin mentioned this earlier about having the roads not connect here. I'm assuming from what you just said, it's because of the slope that you
Slope
wouldn't
is a
connect
real,
those.
real big issue. Try and cut a road through there, you lose a lot on either side of the road. I mean, just because of the grades, it's very difficult. We do have good connectivity here at Del Monte. There's a red light to get people in and out. They certainly can come back around out Cowpack Avenue. We've got lots of options for people to get through there. We will have a trail. People here will be allowed to participate to a degree in the clubhouse and the pool.
Oh, they will?
Yes.
Okay.
This will be a separate association here, separate association here.
Okay.
But they all access the same clubhouse.
Excuse me?
Single families or not, I think we just distinguish that, right? So the single families probably would not have access to the clubhouse because they're not paying into it. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Trail system, you showed the trail system in your plans, but Mike it's probably early, we probably haven't looked how this would integrate with the city's trail system.
Well, you've got a trail system that comes through here and then hooks into the park, comes back underneath the bridge here, and then continues over.
On the other
This
side of
system would
Arrowhead.
bring here,
Here, yeah.
and we'd be able to
So here's the trail
This is
here.
here, yeah.
Is this, I guess this is where the crosswalk is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
Well,
That's not the
crosswalk-
tunnel, that's
No,
the
it exactly
The
goes
tunnel's on this side, right?
Yep.
Tunnel's here, this is the crosswalk.
Yep.
Okay. So you'd have a trail that comes down here. Does the city have or plan to have a trail along Arrowhead on that side? Do you know?
North side,
North side? It's already on the north side?
part of it.
Okay. Okay, and green space,
Well,
usually when we look at a development, we're talking about green space. What have you got for green space?
The R4 zone's
The
gonna
houses
require
take care of
amenities.
themselves, townhouses, all these areas will be landscaped around it, the central area here.
This will be landscaped,
Have
right?
landscaping around the perimeter of this, the hillsides will be landscaped. I think what we're really looking at is, this is a major landscape area that's going to be available both to our
Counting that as green space.
and to the city as a whole.
Okay. All right.
The R4 zone will require certain amenities as well. That'll be worked into that.
Yeah, into this area.
They're not all in there now.
Well, there. As far as the concept goes,
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Looks great.
I'm with
don't know what
I'm with
anyone
him.
else
I'm
thinks,
actually
but-
disappointed we're not voting on it tonight.
I am.
Let's go, you know?
Get her done.
Has staff looked at parking for the townhomes?
That's what I was gonna bring up, is parking.
I think that you mentioned that your timing on the project would probably be a year or more because you've got some leases that you have to work out. Is that right?
That's correct. And our intention now is the single-family homes will be built
Prior to.
right immediately. This project will probably start very quickly as well. The relocation of CalPAC, of course, it goes right through the middle.
Right through the middle.
So we're gonna have to wait till some of those leases can either be renegotiated or vacated until we can get that done.
Gotcha.
So we're probably looking at a long work here and here, next spring and fall. This area through here will probably gonna be another,
How long do you usually do your leases for?
I think the last of them end in '23.
Okay. Have you done any other developments in Spanish Fork?
I've done a lot of them, but have you done another one?
Several? Any that you can point out specifically, like most recent ones?
Like Maverick,
So commercial,
Alberta,
so a lot of commercial development. What about residential?
so it'd be Arrive Homes, so,
Arrive would be building most of these?
that's.
Or building all of these? Okay. Okay, good to know.
Now, if you want to see some of their projects, across the street to the, south, at Riverwoods in Grove, that is a Rimrock project.
Okay,
Nice project.
Yes.
right.
That'd be a good job.
So I've got a question for Dave. And Mike, maybe you can go to the aerial, the Google aerial with the zoning map or the general plan map. I don't remember which one it was. And zoom out just a little bit. And this question that I bring up probably because I live in this neck of the woods. So you see a lot of red in there. And we've seen over the last few years a lot of residential development and plans for continued residential development. When would you expect to start seeing some commercial to start showing up on this end of town? Or do we need a company like WPI that actually pushes the commercial?
We've had people that have, I think, in a very bona fide way inquired about where they could put certain kinds of businesses along Arrowhead in that route.
Okay.
Until maybe now, developing along Arrowhead has been cost prohibitive because we haven't had sewer service really available in the area. The project that the city's doing just a little bit further west of what we're talking about tonight is gonna change that. But I think, right, I'm kind of speculating here.
Yeah.
But also, I think we have a little bit of a sense because of
Tell him
the
36
questions
months.
that we get.
Tell him Commissioner Ernest said 36 months.
Take that for what it's worth.
Yes.
So because you've got history, you understand the development, you've seen what's happened on the north end of town.
Yeah.
Where you get a certain company behind a piece of property and it's just exploded, and then you get a little bit along Highway 6 where the Walmart and that's taken place, but that really feels like that's the only commercial up to this point that's taken place in the city.
Yeah.
There's a lot of areas that we've designated for commercial, so I'm just kind of wondering how that happens where you get this piece that develops really quick, this part, but eventually other stuff. What leads to the other parts being developed?
The stuff the city's doing right now.
So infrastructure
Infrastructure and then rooftops.
Yeah.
and residential.
And over here,
That
honestly,
rings.
I think it's probably traffic counts as much as anything.
Yeah.
There are only so many homes that can be built within a half a mile, 5 miles of this site. But as we talk about Woodland Hills Drive,
Yeah.
the new road that's gonna be built, basically taking Elk Ridge, Payson, and Salem traffic to the interchange. and all of the other things that will cause traffic counts in the area to continue to increase for a really, really long period of time. I think that is really what's gonna drive
36 months is sounding better and better.
the
isn't it?
decision-making.
Yeah.
And I'm parroting largely what I've been told by people that have looked here, people that have looked at the intersection of Woodland Hills Boulevard and Main Street, people that have talked about what they see the future being at the interchange out at I-15 and as well Main Street. So you kind of have four different areas that get talked about when somebody says, hey, you know, we're looking kind of long-term in Spanish Fork at some places that might be right for business after US 6 is built out and that type of a thing. And we always talk about those four areas. And it, depending on who it is and what they're looking for, you know, for some of the end users, only looking at something with visibility from I-15. You know, for other folks, they absolutely have identified Main Street as a corridor that they want to have a presence on. So I have no idea, you know, what the timing might be.
Yeah, obviously.
Might be 36 months, but everything's happening faster now than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And things take forever, but I'm really surprised how fast things are moving now.
So then my other question with this, you'd mentioned earlier, not tonight, but another time, that the city meets fairly regularly with NEBO, with the school district. How soon would they see what we're looking at tonight and what's going on with Sunrock, everything going on here, now with the Rives stuff going over here? At this point, I think the only elementary school, or the nearest one, would be Riverview. At what point does NEBO kind of start to look at this and say, okay, we need to look at an additional school?
Probably a year ago, when we finalized plans to build the lift station, we told NEBO, hey, you know what's happened on the northeast bench? We see the same thing happening down here. They've been aware of that. They've acquired school sites. In fact, it's Arrive Homes that they've worked with on that. We meet with them quarterly, and I usually take about 7 or 8 minutes in that meeting just to talk about things like this.
Okay.
So very casually, we talk about it. You know, when something's in this kind of a state, you know, still conceptually, when they get down to where, you know, we can say, hey, homes are going to be occupied here next year and that type of thing, that's really when they start to take more notice. But this part of the community is, I think, like ground zero for growth 5 years from now.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
I just have one more comment for the applicant. When we come back with the townhomes, we've always hit up more parking than you'd probably initially require. And that's one thing everybody's came in for townhomes. We've as much parking as you can give us.
All the residents that show up for the public meetings say townhome garages are used for storage, not for parking. And they're always concerned about parking. And so, to emphasize what was said.
About parking as well. It's a big project. If it gets clogged up with the first 3 units, we can't sell the rest.
Yeah.
So we're going to pay particular attention to that.
Good.
Right.
Great. Look forward to seeing it develop.
Yeah, for sure.
Send it to Dave. Send it
Thank
to
you.
Dave and Brandon. They'll beat it up a little bit. Send it to Dave and Brandon once you have your almost final draft. They'll beat it up and then we'll see.
Then we'll continue at a couple of meetings.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, you guys.
We're excited for this one.
Yeah.
You control yourself.
No, I want this one.
Man, that's it?
We talked a little bit about the duplex as well, just south of the townhomes that John Snyder finished up. Do you guys have any concerns with that concept there?
The one that wrapped on the corner?
No. The one that.
I think as long as he makes the existing ones look good,
the Cedar
then I don't have any
We need
concern with that.
I'd like to see something done with those two that face each other. Some kind of an upgrade there.
Yeah.
I think those are far below what I would like to see.
Well, and can you go back to the image of the current conditions, maybe
Yeah.
This exists all over the place.
Yeah,
It does.
And
This is our
It
chance.
exists right
to do
behind
something
it,
different.
on
Yeah.
the next street. It's the same, yeah.
Same thing, but it's just like our applicant that we had just barely with the home. This is our opportunity to make it
See
look
if we can
better.
make something a little
He's
bit.
putting a garage on it.
Garages are
He
good.
doing, I mean, it's brick already. If he does do a whitewash on it.
Yeah, it'd be
That helps
fine.
out.
Yeah.
How about just a little bit of something on the roof to change the, I mean, this is the
Some type of
standard.
dormer or a gable.
Yeah, just a gable or something,
make it
maybe
look a little
something
bit
that comes out over the,
Doesn't time it as much.
just something that just kind of
That'd be nice
upgrades
if
those.
there's something that delineated where the entrance was, something right over the,
Yeah,
just the front entrance.
one of the things that
Pretty
we
blah.
talked to John about, I think it's more than just me, also is, if you can go to the image of what he's proposed to build, which I'll say right now I love.
I like the one that's inside.
Which one?
That's the just front elevation, or that.
Yeah.
This for me is a breath of fresh air. As a
Nice.
this is not the duplex that we are used to seeing. So when it comes to like roof lines and different things like that, materials, colors, whatever he could do to not make this look like a sore thumb behind the other, do some things either with this or with the existing
Yeah.
to get a sense of consistency there. I think
To
that
John's point though, he could tie in some elements he's got on this.
With
the
that.
existing ones.
Easy.
So it blends in together. It could be done very cheaply.
Yeah,
and it
I mean,
ties
look at
in
that.
together.
Do
Yeah.
something like
And a
that.
couple of
and
trees out there in front on
Yeah.
the street.
It also matches.
You're
his
speaking for Sean.
cottages.
Yes.
Matches what?
The cottages on Fourth are right behind.
Right behind it.
Well, they're on that
So
bottom
he's
right
saying
picture,
actually
they're just right over there.
neighborhood, maybe
bad.
one like this by itself.
That's-
You'd be like, well, that's a little different.
Too bad he
but
couldn't get the whole.
You talk about the
there.
whole block, this will be more than half the block by the time he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half the block.
Yeah.
So we have these behind it here, something nice right
Is this
here.
a home?
No, that's his.
a shed.
It's a shed?
Oh, there.
Is it a flag lot? Is this a separate lot all by itself?
It is. Interesting history there.
Guarantee John's tried to buy that many times.
I'll bet he tried to buy it with those. Hey, but you've got to give him credit for coming up with very innovative stuff. And, that was my point with what we talked about tonight, is with a
Well,
little bit of
John's
imagination.
experience, he knows what he's doing. He's done it. He's got.
John, that was a great summary by him, though, right?
Ooh.
It was. But
Yeah, he does.
Not John Smiley.
He's got enough experience. He can,
Yeah,
he'll
he
get
knows
it
what
right.
he's doing. He knows the process. He's got it down. He's just stamping it out. That guy he was lost from the beginning.
I feel like he's upped his game too. Like, I really appreciate that. Much of what we see in this part of the community, which frustrates me, and I could share with you examples of what I think proves this, it really is kind of the lowest common denominator. Whereas that's not really what the infill overlay was intended to do. It was intended to try to just raise people's expectations and aspirations for what housing in this part of the community could be, to encourage longer term residency,
Yeah.
home ownership, which wouldn't happen here, but different things like that.
But you have to remember also that when these were built, these are all brick. They were very, very nice.
That was the style,
There was
yeah.
no complaint about these, and there's two more that are there on Fifth, I mean, in this area, but now they're dated, and not much has been done, and that's the thing that I'd like to see somehow change in the mind of the people. And I think that Smiley does a good job of that, with HOAs and with making something that you want to keep up, rather than just rent.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a time.
These guys are just renting.
The project that he's working on.
Absolutely.
That becomes
Is he-
a bar that we say.
I think.
What John did.
He's got a fence here, right? He's not planning on opening up open space between us two, is he? Or he treating these as two totally separate?
Yeah.
Have you talked to him
That's
about
how it's
that?
been presented to us, and in all honesty, that's partly why I wanted to touch base with you guys tonight, so I can encourage John to move forward with this sooner than later. He's gonna incur some pretty significant expense making this happen. And
What did the site plan get?
We did have to chuckle. They put this as a shared porch, or shared patio.
Oh, really?
I was like, well.
Underneath, so,
No, it's on top.
Oh, it's on top.
Ground level.
It's shared?
It's ground
They're
level.
never gonna share that.
it's ground level? So is there a door to it from here and a door to it from
Yeah.
here?
So if you walk out to go sunbathing, you might have someone already out there.
Beating you to it?
Since I'm a big sunbather, that's it.
It's right back here.
Okay.
The other one too is then like, there could, I guess, be a little gate
Why
here.
doesn't he still has living space? He doesn't need it.
Patio?
He's got 2 balconies on the front
Why
that
don't you
would be
put
above anything else.
one in the front, one in the back or something?
I don't know why he doesn't do a
Well, in the front
pickleball
one,
court.
like, do you want to like put up something like non-see-through? It's like you walk out on your porch and like, high five, Nick.
I know.
Maybe like on a cruise ship when you've got a
Anyway,
balcony.
I know that's super
Every hotel that I
nitpicky.
stay in has something like that.
A shared access, shared patio.
I think it shows it
Yeah.
here. It's kind of see. So shared patio.
Shared patio.
Gotta have a place for the smoker.
That's probably true.
It's America, guys.
Yep. Mark.
That's what I was hoping to get, was just your thoughts. If anybody had concerns about this, I'd pass that on to John, but I'll encourage him to.
I guess I gotta throw one little fly in the ointment. He actually filed a bond with the city to remove the fence around the townhomes and put in the fence that we requested.
The masonry wall.
Yes,
He has to do that,
he has to do that,
Yes.
and he's aware of that as well.
totally. That's part of the expense he's gonna realize with this project.
Okay.
And he's bonded for it. The money's there.
Yeah, that's
but
what I say, is,
It will
When
happen.
you say the wall, is it just right here?
yeah, well, the
You're talking
wall.
about the old one.
The old one.
Oh, the
You're talking this
that.
one. Well, because if you put, you don't need one here then, right?
That's, yeah, are we gonna ask him to close it?
I think he needs to do the wall as shown on the plans.
Regardless of what's.
Yeah.
And
It's
it
a
only be a
significant
little
amount of
tiny
money.
section.
I mean, yeah, he probably does, because if is he renting all of these?
That's my understanding, yeah.
I guess it doesn't really matter then, but if I were an owner of one of these and this was my shared land, I wouldn't all of a sudden want to open that up to
I wouldn't.
all of these others as well.
Doesn't, I mean, we have to look at it like they're individually papered.
Yeah.
So we're looking
Yeah.
at it like they're individuals. I would tell them.
Yeah, so he's gotta, yeah.
Will he be building a wall around the back of this third unit then?
Let me make sure I got this right. Brandon, wall, 6 units altogether, but no more than 2 units in a building. Is it a masonry wall that's required or the vinyl fence? Or some
I believe the magical number is 4
total, in the project total, right? So I think it does have to be a masonry wall here.
So he could make use of that he's gonna take out.
Yeah, he's gonna have
the
to do it
others
anyways.
here.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a little easier to swallow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the nearest correction when it's laid all in that.
Yeah.
Lavender, I hate that stuff.
Okay.
You don't like the lavender? It smells
That's it
so
for
good.
us.
It takes over so fast.
Well,
I make a
before-
motion that we adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. I second it. Meeting adjourned.
Wow, that's a record for us.